Hey everyone, so Shannon here. I thought that since I'm kind of doing something new with this whole thing, not just the idea of getting into coaching, but sort of chronicling, I guess, kind of sharing my journey and what have you, that I should introduce myself because some of the people I'm talking to are actually people I don't know in real life necessarily, or at least in fake internet life, who like, I have an established relationship with. So I figured I'd talk a little bit about me sometimes, which is a thing people do on the internet. So I figured I'd start with kind of just talking. God, phone. Sorry, text message. Um, I'm a hot mess. That's the first thing you should know. So I guess that just demonstrated it. But just kind of like my journey and where I am and why I'm kind of on the path I'm on. So I was never like a super healthy person growing up. I wasn't like a severely overweight child or anything like that. Like I ran around and played with my friends and stuff, but I was pretty like crafty, artsy, and doorsy. I like doing really creative stuff and theater and writing. And then I did like play stuff with my brother. So just kind of like average-ish, I guess. And then when I was like in college, I'd sometimes kind of like dip up a little weight and dip back down, just kind of went with like stress and adjusting to adulthood. And pretty much I was always like a little overweight, like probably 10, 15 pounds, like never had like chiseled muscle or a six pack or anything. But like I was like able to close shop fine. Like I was comfortable. I could, move around easily and all that stuff. And then oh golly, I don't know, maybe what year is it? Okay, I had to think about a really long time. So about 8.5 years ago, not long after my husband and I got married, we moved, and I grew up on the East Coast, and we were in Washington D.C., which is where we met, and we moved to Indiana, which is where he's from. And we moved to like a cool town, so it's not like I'm like stuck in a cornfield in the middle of nowhere by myself. But it definitely was a culture shock. It still kind of is sometimes for me as an East Coaster. And for the first time in my life, I noticed during the first year we lived here that I went from someone who, when I got stressed out, I tended to kind of sleep less. I tended to be a little more agitated. So I was like, oh, I'm like on edge. I'm on a wire. And I also tended to lose weight. It was never something I did on purpose, but it just, when I would get stressed out, I would lose weight. So like when we got married, my mom had to help me like get my dress cinched onto me. Cause in like the 6 weeks before our wedding, we ended up moving into the group house we were living into our own apartment, wanting to get that done before the wedding. But then I also got summoned for jury duty in federal court, which overlapped with the week that my honors thesis was due in literature. So like without meaning to be, I ended up losing a lot of weight right before the wedding just because like all the stressful stuff kind of happened. And my sort of natural reaction was, I don't know if I wasn't hungry or I ate less. I'm not sure why. I was stressed out, I would lose weight. And then it would kind of come back to normal. So about a year, a little more or so after we'd moved to the Midwest, some friends came to visit us and it was awesome. It was two of our best friends who were also a couple. And I realized we both did after they left visiting us, we both kind of puffed up a little bit. And when I weighed myself, I was really surprised to see how much more I weighed, like 20 or 30 more pounds than when we'd moved here. And I knew all of it wasn't just like hanging out for the holidays. But then I kind of started to realize that after moving and being further away from my family, who was already like 6 hours away from, by the time I was in college, and also just being away from like all my friends, my sort of chosen family, that like, I guess my coping mechanisms changed because I went from someone who would kind of be like agitated and not sleeping and not eating when I was stressed to someone who did all the opposite things. So I kind of got much more like lethargic and inward depressed, instead of like kind of like proactively trying to do stuff. I was clearly eating more, making bad choices or eating at the wrong times, and I was sleeping a lot more. So it's kind of an interesting switch by itself. But a friend of mine in grad school, where I was at the time, Matt, he told me about Beachbody stuff that he had done, and specifically a program called P90X, which I'd heard of. I wasn't super familiar with it as being like part of Beachbody, but like I recognized hearing about it. So we got into it, and it was crazy. In like the first 2 months, because P90X, it's 90 days. In like the first 2 months, I lost like 20 something pounds. I started food tracking, which was great, and trying to really make sure that my water was on point. I started doing martial arts, which is something I wanted to get back into since I was in college, which was really cool. I got 2 belts while I was doing it. And I even started doing a couple 5Ks, which are things I wanted to do and was interested in and never done because it wasn't like me. But once I started doing a workout program that was challenging me, but still fun and like didn't feel like I was like totally outside the realm of it, I got really into it. It was awesome. And then like, I don't know, that was a little while ago. I'm trying to go back. It was before I got pregnant with my son. So shortly after that, I got pregnant and I was finishing grad school. And so I was doing like light activity and yoga and stuff. Like I wasn't trying to go crazy with it. But like I wasn't doing bad. I didn't gain like 60 pounds or something like that, when I got pregnant or anything. So it went okay. But it all kind of like things started layering up. So like I found out I was pregnant the week I found out I'd gotten into a PhD program. Or no, the week that I had found out that I was getting all the materials to enroll. So I would like reply. So like I basically was like, oh, you're having a baby. By the way, where's that letter of recommendation? Like put it all together. So that was kind of an interesting week because wow, a lot of life changes suddenly happening. And then, I had my son and he was awesome and great, but he was born 6 weeks to the day before I started orientation. So it was like, he came 2 weeks early because like he knew I needed to be able to like get him into daycare and their cutoff was 6 weeks for part-time. Just so I could like get in and go. And then, just life got stressful. I was starting school. I had a baby, which was a lot different than babysitting, which I'd been doing a lot of before that. And things just kind of hit some turbulence for us. So my son was 5 months old. He got really sick. He actually got flown in a helicopter for his first Christmas to the children's hospital from RER because they couldn't do anything for him. And he almost died. And it still is a really intense emotional thing for me to talk about. And I honestly try to avoid thinking about it a lot, which is probably the thing I need to deal with on my own with professional help anyway. Just because there's a lot of guilt and fear and strong emotions tied to that. But I mean, like he literally almost died in my arms and it was like the scariest thing ever, but it also set into this chain of events where just for months we were in and out of hospitals constantly, going to the ER all the time. You never knew when the ER was going to mean you were going to get admitted. You never knew if you got admitted if we were going to be able to stay in town or we going to have to go to the children's hospital an hour away. I mean, it had tons of impact. My husband and I both missed tons of work. Like my husband, who never misses work, missed enough that he actually ended up having to take unpaid days. His prescriptions were hundreds and hundreds of dollars a month. We had to take out loans and stuff just to pay like for some of it. I mean, it got out of hand. And I ended up being so stressed out from like trying to keep up with all the stuff I needed to do in school, but trying to work extra jobs outside of school because grad school, if you were lucky enough to go to one that pays, which I was, they do not pay very much at all. Not even close. Like a third of what I was earning when I worked full time in an admissions office for a job that was like high school or GED required, so not even specialized training. So not a lot of money. So I ended up leaving my PhD program and just taking a master's because I was half-assing it at school and I was half-assing it at home. And both things needed 100% of me. And being with my child who was like starting to get a little bigger and stronger and healthier and trying to fix the situation that my family was in, that was my priority. And then honestly, in the time since then, it's just been like constant chaos one over another. I've had a lot of health problems. I've had back problems since I was 15 on and off. But they got really, really severe during the sort of like 5 years or so, the past 5 years. My son's almost 6. So probably started again when he was like 3 months old. I'd start having more flare-ups of like back spasms or sprains and stuff that kind of just seemed to be happening spontaneously or with little effort. I got really sick for a while and they put me on medicine that helped, but it also meant that I gained like 100 pounds almost in 6 months. So my body, which was already stressed out from like literal stress, the mental, emotional stress and like all these back issues that I'd been having that were starting to get just like a little more twitchy, it seemed, since having a baby and like I was already doing physical therapy for it and everything. Like suddenly I just had all this weight piled on me. And as someone who has a metabolic syndrome anyway, that was well controlled, having all this weight suddenly thrown on, like, it kind of sent fire shooting everywhere, like my brain, my body, my emotions, my ability just to function in my life, everything kind of went downhill. So in the past 3.5 years, almost 4 years, I've had 7 different surgeries. 2 of them by themselves were just for my back. One was just in May, because the first one like worked for a little bit, but like it didn't fix everything. They had to kind of go back in. I've had my arms and hands fixed from cysts and numbness and nerve damage, like all kinds of crazy stuff. Some of it related, some of it not. But the past couple years have just been a lot of being in physical pain, being in mental and emotional pain, trying to not just grow my young family, but figure out how we were going to get around all these stressors that were happening. I spent a lot of time walking on a cane, like probably 2 or 3 years total in the past 5 of being in physical therapy and occupational therapy. And it was all really stressful and really expensive. And one of the big, oh God, my alarm. What? One of the big things for me that was paying the price was absolutely my health. A thing that a lot of young women, especially high achieving ones, a lot of parents, but especially moms, deal with, and especially if you're in grad school, I don't care, like any gender, national, whatever, you're in grad school, like this also happens to you. There are huge clusters of us who have trouble saying no to other people or other things and saying yes to ourselves. And I just happened to fall, like there was a Venn diagram. I was just stuck in the middle of all of them. So I ended up not ever taking care of myself. And my self-esteem really suffered. My self-confidence really suffered. I felt like someone who went from someone who like knew I had a lot of potential, kind of procrastinated, knew I could always do a little better than I was, but like I was okay, to someone who wanted things but felt like I was never capable or never deserving and therefore never going to get there. And over the past year especially, I've been doing a lot just like trying to change my mindset. And I'm happy. And the reason I'm sharing this video is I feel like so far 2019, might actually be kind of representative of that shift for me, because I know we all like make New Year's resolutions or whatever. I didn't intentionally, at least. But I know we always have, depending on our calendar, next month, next year, next semester, starting next week, starting tomorrow, starting whenever, ... Things are going to be different. I'm going to be different. My life is going to be different. I've been telling myself that story forever and nothing ever changed. And it seems so stupid and obvious now, but like I finally have figured out in the past couple months, the reason nothing ever changed is because I never changed. Because even when other things did change, I didn't. And so my goals and my dreams and all of those things, they weren't getting any closer to happening, even when other external things were changing, because I wasn't changing. And so my friend Jamie, she's a Beachbody coach. So she's the one who actually kind of got me into it, but also her son and my son are really good friends. So we just, were hanging out and talking and stuff. She kind of knew that I was in this place. I was like, all right, I'm starting to lose weight. I'm starting to get my food under control. I'm healed from my back surgery. Like I'm getting to a place where I feel like I can move more, but I want to keep this up, but I just don't know where to go. She approached me about doing a program with her in January. And so just, again, not on purpose, just the timing of it was like right after the new year. And I really loved it. I had loved doing P90X before because it was really structured, and I kind of need a babysitter just to adult and function. And so also doing it, not just in like a challenge group, which is what they call it, but like with someone I knew, like all of that together kind of made me more accountable than I feel like, definitely than I've been in the past, and maybe more than I would have been anyway. Like, I'm sure that helped with shifting my mindset, and not just that, like, January 1st, I woke up like, woo, different person. But doing that and having people to talk about with it, especially, reminded me how much I had enjoyed being active and being fit, and how much I know about food. Because I've studied a lot about food, both for medical reasons, just personally, and even a little bit in school. And so it's not like I didn't have any of the knowledge or the ability to do things. It's just like it wasn't happening. And this year, sorry, I'm thirsty all the time. Another thing you'll learn about me. And I spill. Third truth about me. I'm a disaster. I'm always thirsty, and I spill water myself a lot. 3 things you need to know about me, if nothing else, those. But yeah, so I started doing the group with Jamie, and then I did Transform 20, which was kind of awesome. And then I found out about the Ultimate Portion Fix. So I'm doing the certification for that to be the master coach and whatever. But the big thing I've noticed for me is that this year, it's not like I'm like, okay, cool, I'm going to do this workout and it's going to last 6 weeks and then it's going to be done. And thinking about it in this segmented way, the way I kind of used to. Like, it was like, cool, I did that. Now what am I going to do next? And I don't know exactly what combination of things it is. I have kind of a feeling it was like the right moment in time where like having support of a friend, but then having like a structured group and a structured program to kind of like fit like my sort of type A personality, while I was already seeing some progress for weight loss and feeling the progress of just not being trapped in my body and in pain all the time, like all this kind of stuff together. I think this all happened at the right time. And so I was able to start thinking about things, not just like I'm going to do this, but seeing this kind of like a start of something, I guess. And so it's really interesting because this year so far, which has already had a lot of challenges, like that's a whole separate thing. I've been sick so many times this year and like weird stuff with work and just changed job. It's been a weird year. Like my life's just been weird the past few years and nothing's different 2019 except me, apparently, because that's what's different is I finally am in this mindset where it's not, I'm going to do this thing and then boop, check it off the list. And then like, I just move on with my life. It's like, cool, I'm going to achieve this goal. I'm going to do this thing because then it lets me move on to do this next thing. And that's really weird for me. It's certainly not my typical and it's scary and it's exciting. So I had this realization this morning at like, dark 30, 5:00 in the morning going to work. It was literally dark. But I kind of realized that like, this has sort of become like the year of living for me. It's sort of like 2019 is my year of wellness because I'm finally getting to a place where it's everything. It's not just me committing to an exercise program and doing it and thinking about nutrition, but finding all these ways with friends, with family, with doing the nutrition certification, with doing the Beachbody stuff specifically, like finding concrete things to help me hold myself accountable, but also getting into a headspace where I'm finally able to think about like, well, what do I want from these things? Like what specifically do I want and I need to make my life better, to avoid certain things that I haven't liked in the past or to get things I want that I haven't had before, to really start seeing my goals in a concrete way and not like, I want to have a cute little bikini body and like, I want to be skinny because everyone's skinny and I want to be rich because rich is cool on TV, like let go of kind of all that superficial stuff that we think of when we think of goals. Like I was really able to start getting to my why for a lot of things. And that has helped me a lot with my goals. And like this terminology I'm using with the why and the goals are things I found out since I kind of started my coaching training stuff. They weren't the words I was using before, but I was finally thinking about it from that way is like, what does it mean for my life? Because it's been a disaster for the past 5 years. So something's got to change. Something has to give. And I guess I finally figured out it was me. And I don't know if I figured it out innately and then started changing, or if when things started changing, I realized I was the catalyst. I don't know. A lot of this is me spewing off the top of my head. These are ideas I haven't even had for 12 hours yet. But I realized that the problem was never that I couldn't do it. I could. I didn't believe I could do it. I didn't know I could do it. And so I didn't do it. I let fear of failure, fear of the unknown, fear of everything, my body, my history, whether or not I could do something. I let all of that hold me back. And that was dumb. It was stupid. I should have never done that. Because now I know that I can do it. Things are not going to necessarily move as quick as I might like them to. The results I get might be the ones I want at that moment. And I think I had to go through this crazy half decade of things just like being well-intentioned and then just going to hell no matter what I did, to realize that just because this is the plan and you do everything you can to get there and the plan doesn't come together, it doesn't mean the plan failed. It doesn't mean you failed. It means the plan changed. And so you have to be flexible. And certainly it's like you learn like when you're parenting anyway. And I think I've kind of figured out it goes to my whole life. So nothing's gone the way I've wanted it to. And that's not a bad thing in every case. It's also not a good thing in every case. But I've had to learn to be adaptable. And by changing that mindset, I'm suddenly more aware that like I am more capable and stronger than I thought. I just need to stop pigeonholing into like what success looks like, what the journey to get there is going to look like. And once I let myself have objectives without having like a detailed have to follow it this way sort of map, I was getting to my destination or further along on my journey than I ever was before restricting myself. So this is a really long video and I'm just rambling now. I have no clue. So I'm going to stop. And at another time, I'll talk to you fine folks for less time about maybe more interesting stuff about me. I'm a disaster.